everyone a copy.
Which clock is right?
One on your computer.
Good call. All right, if I can get everybody's attention, we're going to call meeting number 7 to order. This is April 4th, 2016 at 5:30 p.m. in the Thomas J. Smith Council Chambers. Would you all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kathleen, can we get a roll call, please?
Campbell,
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Wilson. Here. Davidson.
Here.
Fleming.
Here.
Okay, we'll start with the proclamation tonight.
Proclamation, whereas the Burlington City Council and the Keep Burlington Beautiful Committee wishes to protect and preserve the land, water, air, and other natural resources for future generations. And whereas the Burlington City Council and the Keep Burlington Beautiful Committee wish to observe the 16th local Earth Day anniversary. And whereas the Keep Burlington Beautiful event supports and strengthens the goal of environmental sustainability and helps to keep the city of Burlington and Des Moines County clean and vibrant through cleanup activities. And now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Burlington, Iowa, do hereby acknowledge Saturday, April 16th, 2016 as Earth Day 2016 in the city of Burlington, Iowa, and invite all city residents to attend activities and participate in the Keep Burlington Beautiful citywide cleanup day on that day. Signed and sealed this 4th day of April 2016.
Mr. Tislin.
Thank you. As a member of the Keep Burlington Beautiful Committee, I want to thank the council for this proclamation. It's a primary event of that committee that we look forward to every year, and look forward to having a great day on April 16th. Encourage anyone, family, young, old, anyone that has the desire to help clean Burlington and keep Burlington beautiful to come down to the Port of Burlington at 8:30. We have a sign in there, registration, give locations for people to clean or take suggestions for people to clean, give bags and gloves. You can buy t-shirts for $5. And then we have a lunch afterwards, generally clean up from 8:30 to 10:30 or 11, then come back for a free lunch and some entertainment and door prizes. And hopefully we can beautify Burlington a little bit more on April 16th. So encourage everyone to be involved and come down to the Port of Burlington.
I just want to tap on that. It's a really good time, good fellowship, so those of you that don't have anything to do and you haven't had a chance to participate, I'll tell you, it's just a fantastic time. So, again, I just want to reiterate that. Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is a consent agenda. All items listed under item 1, consent agenda, having been discussed, are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. On the consent agenda tonight, we have finances and miscellaneous, minutes of previous meetings, payroll, city claims, beer, liquor, wine, and cigarettes, reports, and bonds. We have 7 resolutions. The first one is a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. The second is a resolution approving renewal of taxi cab vehicle for hire license for Executive Transportation, LLC, doing business as Executive Transportation, LLC. The third is a resolution to establish new rental fees and charge schedules for Memorial Auditorium and the Port of Burlington effective January 1st, 2018, with annual adjustments through January 2020. The fourth is a resolution amending sewer user fee effective July 1st, 2016. The fifth is resolution amending solid waste fees effective July 1st, 2016. The sixth is a resolution amending stormwater utility systems fees pursuant to Chapter 100.02 of the Burlington City Code. The seventh is a resolution amending septic hauler fees effective July 1st, 2016. We have 3 scheduled public hearings for April 18th. The first is consideration of a permanent encroachment agreement with Downtown Partners, Inc. for encroachment into city right-of-way for the Burlington Lightscape project. Second is consideration of sale of conveyance and real property, approximately 0.184 acre parcel located south of Agency Road and east of North Roosevelt Avenue. The third is consideration of annual consolidated transit funding application. And Mayor Pro Tem, we also have some appointments.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Economic Development Advisory Committee, Joel Siren is requesting an additional one-year term expiring at the end of 2016, or December 1st, 2016. And then we have an appointment of a steering committee for the Phase 5 flood mitigation project. A number of employees, Jim Furneaux, City Manager, Ryan Gorley, Park Superintendent, Braden Hill, Property Maintenance Manager, Jason Hutchinson, President CEO of Greater Burlington Partnership, Mike Johnstone, Steamboat Days Committee Member, Chuck Griffin, City Planning Commissioner, Tim Scott, City Council Member, Matt Rinker, Riverfront Advisory Commissioner, Steve Freevert, Executive Director of Downtown Partners, Ryan Thornburg, City Engineer, Zach James, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning, and Charlie Nichols, City Planning, to the Phase 5 flood mitigation project. And I don't, do we want to talk about their meetings right now, or do you want to do that?
I'll do it at the end.
Okay.
Okay. If there's anybody from the audience that would desire to have one of these items removed from the consent agenda, please state so now. Is there one? Okay. Council?
Not I.
No, thank you.
Okay.
I move to approve all listed under item 1 consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and second. Kathleen?
McCampbell,
Yes.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay. This is time set for hearing for consideration of a permanent encroachment agreement with Douglas and Dana Atkins for encroachment into city right-of-way at 914 Maple Street. Publication has been made. Mr. Tislin?
This is for a stair encroachment for access into Kayla's Cupboard there on the east side of Dana's Total Image at 914 Maple Street. So it'll be a landing from the door and then a couple stairs down. They have a rough sketch here, but pretty simple, straightforward encroachment. It is a permanent set of stairs. Would maintain a minimum of 5 feet 5 inches between the light pole and the edge of the stairway, and additional length to the edge of the curb. We try and maintain a minimum of 4 feet just for access through all that, so they are meeting that. And this allows proper access into Kayla's Cupboard there.
Is there anybody from the audience that has any questions or concerns? I see none. Council?
I'm here.
Straightforward.
Yep. Well, she'll be glad to hear that this is moving forward. Let's take it to vote. Kathleen?
I move
Oh, I'm sorry.
motion to close.
Second.
Thank you. Kathleen?
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Your Honor, I have a resolution approving permanent encroachment agreement with Douglas and Dana Atkins for encroachment into the city right-of-way at 914 Maple Street.
Second that?
Moved in second. Let's take it to vote.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Okay, good deal. All right, this time set for hearing for consideration of an ordinance amending ordinance number 3360, being an ordinance creating the Burlington Crossing PUD, the planned unit development, by making changes to section 5E signage. Publication has been made in the Hawkeye as prescribed by law. Mr. Tislin?
This is a couple changes to the existing plan unit development for the Burlington Crossing PUD. This PUD was set up under the previous developer that had an option for the property, and some of the signage requirements were quite a bit more restrictive than our code. The current developer of the property would like that language to be brought in line with some of our current code language and then some of the existing PUDs along Roosevelt Avenue, such that pole signs for businesses on lots can be up to 25 feet, which is consistent with other PUDs, particularly on the southern end of Roosevelt Avenue, and allowing shared pole signs similar to at the Dick's Sporting Goods site, where the multi-tenants are on the same sign, allowing up to 3 of those, and then the distance between the shared signs and the signs on the lot to be to be no less than 20 feet in length. So this just brings this into more in line with our current code and some of the other practices for PUDs along Roosevelt.
Anyone from the audience that has any questions, comments, or concerns? I see none. You're a lovely audience tonight. All right. Council?
Just wait.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
We
Say
know
still
why
early.
they're here.
I move to close.
Second.
All right, moved in second. Kathleen?
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Your Honor, I have a motion for preliminary adoption of the first reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 3360, being an ordinance creating the Burlington Crossing PUD Planned Unit Development by making changes to Section 5E signage.
Second.
Kathleen?
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, ordinances. Who's got the, is that me?
Your Honor, this one's already been introduced and seconded. I have an amendment. The amendment reads, to amend Exhibit C, number 3 of the proposed ordinance vacating and selling the portion of South 14th Street right-of-way located adjacent to 1800, 1802, 1804 South 15th Street, Burlington, Iowa, as follows. A perpetual, non-exclusive easement shall be maintained over the entire portion of the right-of-way being vacated for utility maintenance, along with perpetual, non-exclusive access easement 15 feet in width along the west side and 20 feet in width along the north side of the vacated right-of-way. No permanent structure, paved driveway, and/or other paved surface improvements shall be located within the vacated right-of-way without the city's prior written consent. Further, prior to the construction of any such improvements, the property owner requesting said improvements shall relocate any private sewer lines servicing the properties on the east side of South 14th Street out from under said planned improvements area as a request, at the requesting owner's sole cost and expense.
Second.
That's been moved in second. Kathleen?
We need some discussion.
What'd you say?
I said, don't we need some discussion on the
Yes, we do.
amendment?
Is there anybody that wants to discuss, has a question of comment or concern? Is there anybody? All righty. Council?
I just wanted to say this addresses a lot of the issues that I brought up. I still don't see how, according to our code, ordinance number 138, I believe it is, or section 138, how we can show that this benefits the community. I don't even see how it really benefits the immediate neighborhood. It benefits a couple of property owners. I'm concerned that it's going to create more problems than what it's going to solve for the city. I drove by there tonight on the way to the council meeting, and there were 3 vehicles illegally parked on the grassy right-of-way. I know that this says that they can't put paved surfaces, but there's a belief from at least one of the neighbors that that's not part of the property acquisition, that they can put gravel down as a surface for driving and parking on. And that's not the case, and I'm afraid that the property owners may be getting into this with the thought that they can. And it has to be a hard dust-free surface. minimum would be silt coat, and I know that that's frowned upon by development and public works.
How do you guys want to proceed on this? Where's the rest of you guys on this? I hear your point. I think you've got, I think it's definitely valid.
The amendment to me satisfies the concerns for me personally. Well, the gentleman who wanted to opt out of this, buying this property is one of the ones that has made himself a little parking area. And I don't know, we can't force him to opt back in, but it just doesn't seem right that he's taking advantage of that.
Councilman?
It's tough to enforce when you can look throughout the community and see the same thing,
Yeah, yeah,
the same thing going on,
Yep.
so.
you can't do that, I know.
So are we satisfied then? You guys ready to move forward on this?
Yes.
I am.
Okay. Kathleen?
Okay, we're voting on the amendment first. McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
And then the ordinance as amended. McCampbell,
No.
Scott,
No.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Okay, ayes went out on that. Moving forward.
Got me. I have a motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an amendment to ordinance number 3351, Westbrook Meadows Planned Unit Development by adding Outlot A to the provision of the PUD.
Second that.
Okay, moved in second. Mr. Tesla?
This is, again, a continuation of the existing Westbrook Meadows PUD to include Outlot A to the north with provisions for reduced setbacks. The front yard setback for all lots should be 20 feet. Side yard setbacks are allowed to be 0 feet between lots where a building is over the property line for zero lot line development, similar to the development to the south. And then rear yard setback shall be 25 feet with the exception of 9 and 12 being allowed a 15-foot rear yard setback. Minimum lot area should be 3,000 square feet for lots where more than 2 units are attached and a minimum of 6,000 square feet where 2 units are attached. This did go to the planning commission and they did recommend 6-0 to recommend approval of this PUD. So this would, again, set up a zero lot line development for this second phase of this development area for the Westbrook Meadows area, and allow the duplex and fourplex townhouses to be constructed on their own individual lots with a common shared wall and lot boundary in between.
So this will be the same as what we've got there, right? It's just,
Yeah, very similar to what's
Right.
there now. Yep, similar setup and
that turned out very nice, I thought.
Is there anybody from the audience that has any comments or concerns? I see none. Council?
No.
Okay.
Do we have an amendment for this?
Your Honor, I have a motion to amend the motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an amendment to ordinance number 3351, Westbrook Meadows Planned Unit Development by adding Outlot A to the provision of the PUD to read as follows. For waiver of preliminary consideration, adoption of the second reading for the final adoption of an amendment to ordinance number 3351, Westbrook Meadows Planned Unit Development by adding Outlot A to the provision of the PUD.
Second.
Moved in second. Kathleen, as amended?
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
All right.
And then as amended. McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Your Honor, I have a motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance rezoning property located west of Garden Avenue, Lawn Avenue, and Dill Street from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Single Family Traditional Residential Zoning District with planned unit development, Southern Cross PUD overlay zone.
Second?
Thank you. Mr. Tisland.
This is, again, a rezoning of property at the west end of Garden Lawn and Dale Street from R1, single-family residential, to R2, single-family to transitional with a PUD overlay district. Current property surrounding this site, as shown outlined in black here, is R1 to the east, R2 to the north, and C1 to the west, with R1 to the south being the school there. They've requested to rezone with some amendments to the, or some changes to the normal zoning code. Some similar to the Westbrook Meadows PUD as well, looking at 0 lot line development with a front yard setback of 20 feet, 0 foot setback between lot lines where there's a building over top of a property line, so that each side of a duplex unit would be on its own individual lot, and rear setbacks of 15 feet. Minimum lot area again would be 3,000 square feet for each lot with one attached unit, with combined minimum lot area of 6,000 square feet for each 2 lots combined. Each lot within the subdivision have a minimum of 38 feet of frontage with one attached unit, with a combined minimum lot width of 50 feet for each 2 lot combination that contains a duplex. Minimum lot coverage should be 45 feet, or 45%. Pedestrian pathway would connect from this subdivision to the bike trail pedestrian pathway that goes behind Fairway, connecting West Avenue to Mason Road. 15% open space shall be provided. Architecture, appearance, stone brick, other materials should be incorporated into the siding with design elements common for multiple structures within the development to improve the appearance of it. And stormwater management shall be planned for and designed, which is required as part of the plating process. This did go to the Planning Commission and was recommended approval 5-0 with 1 abstain. There was some further discussion. They had a preliminary plat that would be brought forward at the following meeting if this moves forward, where they did not recommend approval, and there was some thought that those were tied together. They voted on them separately, and this was brought forward with a positive recommendation, but the preliminary plat, which isn't before you and won't come until or unless there's a third reading of this, did not have a positive recommendation. Had some concerns about density and traffic for that. I guess some other summary items. So looking at this development, further, again, it is at the end of Long Garden and Dill. These are 3 dead-end streets that have been dead-end for 30-plus years. There is some concern in the neighborhood over traffic. There is one connection to West Avenue and one connection to Mason Road with a school that creates additional traffic in this area. And there had been voiced some concerns that this additional traffic would add to the existing problem on Willow Avenue. Unfortunately, until there's further development to the east, connecting streets over to Sunrise West subdivision, this would remain a 1 in and 1 out subdivision on the north and south. But I guess the street plans do show connection between those neighborhoods, but that, as we see with this lot, it's been 40 years since a development's been brought forward. That could be quite some time as well. Originally, Terrace Avenue was planned to connect from north on West Avenue to Mason Road. That was shifted over to Lawrence Avenue, and subsequently that did not go through as well. So that was one of the items why some of these homes have a greater setback at the end of Garden Lawn and Dale. Just for clarification, on the PUD, the rear yard setback was requested to be reduced to 15 feet. Under a normal R2, a rear yard's 25 feet, but based on the lot configuration with 0 lot line development, the rear yard would be on the east side for the lots adjacent to the existing homes. That would make a 15-foot setback required on the east side if this was simply R2 without zero lot line development, that would be a side yard based on the lot configuration, and the setback would be 5 feet. So without this PUD, the setback adjacent to the existing homes would be 5 feet. If it were rezoned to R2, if it stayed as R1, it would be 7 feet. With the PUD, the setback between the existing homes and the new development, if it were approved, would be 15 feet. So the PUD, even though it's reducing some of the setbacks based on the zero lot line development and the configuration of the lots, is actually pulling those homes further away than would normally be allowed under traditional rezoning or traditional development under R2 or R1. The other item with the PUD based on the lot layout, let's see if I have a map here or not. Again, with the traditional R2, the front is on, would be on, this example, on lawn, the rear on the north, those would both be 25. The side would be to the east, which would be 5, and then the second front yard would be 10 feet. Even if they had a driveway coming off of this new road, it would be 10 feet, which would eliminate the possibility of having parking in front of a garage on private property. With the PUD, the front yard would be on the new street with a 20-foot setback that would allow the garage parking plus one off-street parking space in front of the garage. So based on the request before you, the setback would be greater from the existing homes, and then the front yard setback being 20 feet would allow an additional off-street parking in addition to the garages that are provided. Just some of the examples based on traditional, just straight R2 and why the PUD was requested and why those numbers were put in there. It does allow for additional off-street parking and does provide some additional separation. A couple items that were brought up before, the right-of-way would be 50 feet within this development. The streets would be 27 feet, which would be part of the plating process again, but those were questions asked before. All new residential streets are typically 27 feet in width, so that would not be a deviation from that. It would allow connection of garden, lawn, and dill with a through street or a circular connection street. Instead of having 3 dead ends, you'd have a connection, which I know is important for access if there's a fire, or if there's a water main break or some other issue in the area. That's why we try and restrict cul-de-sacs or dead ends, is to allow better access for emergency instances. Again, asking for zero lot line development. We don't have anything in our code at this time. It's something we are looking at. We have, in the last few years, had that request for zero lot line development where developers or owners feel it's easier to sell an attached unit. Even though it's a single family, it's an attached unit with land instead of just a common ownership of land. And that's something, looking at just preliminarily at what other communities do. Iowa City has specific provisions for zero lot line development in R1, R2, R3 type areas where they specify what the lot width is, what the setbacks are, and they're generally reduced from normal development, but that's not something we have in our code. That's why this has to come forward as a PUD, because we don't allow any zero lot line development unless it is through a PUD, which is just an agreement between the city and the developer. So that is something we are looking at, whether that's something that needs to be in our code or not, but as I stated, currently we do not have that. Under the provisions of this PUD, the combined 2 lots would meet our R2 standards for lot size. In an R2, the minimum lot size for a duplex is 6,000 square feet. The majority of these lots would be 8,000 to 9,000 square feet in size. So based on the density in an R2 area, this is not requesting more than what would be allowed in an R2. If this was just zoned R2, based on the buildable area, taking out the street right away, I don't know that you could configure it that way, but you could have 22 lots with 44 units. Like I said, I don't know that you could configure it no manner to fit that in just under straight R2 without a PUD request, but in an R1, you could have, I believe it's 15 lots just based on the straight 9,000 square foot lot area. So just trying to provide as much information. I know we've had a lot of requests on this, or a lot of questions and information on this. Other PUD examples, Sunrise West has a front yard setback of 10 feet, rear yard 25, and a building separation of 10 feet. Mason Meadows has a front yard setback varying based on size of 15 and 20 feet and a rear yard of 20. in Westbrook Meadows, as we just approved, has a front yard setback of 20 feet and a rear yard of 15 and some, for some lots, but 25 for others. So they are asking something similar to what other PUDs have been approved. Some other factors, looking at infill, new construction, this is a unique size lot. It's difficult to fit 2 rows of housing and a street within it, and to develop it as a larger lot would be able to be developed. They're looking at a price point of around $150,000 per unit, with 2-car garages, and 2 off-street parking spaces per lot. As I said, this did go to the Planning Commission for preliminary plat approval. That did not receive a positive recommendation as 1 to 5, but that would not come forward until the 3rd reading of this rezoning if it does get moved forward. And then a couple of provisions of our comprehensive plan. Under the housing section of our comprehensive plan, it states, as the city grows and changes, housing must change to meet the needs of the population. Housing is included in the comprehensive plan to provide guidance for decision makers and developers when considering additions and renovations to the city's housing stock. Strategy under Goal 1 is the city encourages a mix of housing unit sizes, types, and market rate price points in all neighborhoods. The city will be aware of market demands for various housing types and will encourage development of units that respond to market demands. That one specifically, I think, applies to our housing needs assessment that's being presented next Tuesday, April 12th. Unfortunately, we don't have that fully in front of us to see how that relates to what's being requested here, but the comprehensive plan does state we should take that into consideration. The timing with this 2nd reading isn't there, but if it were advanced to a 3rd reading, would have some input into, I guess, your decision there. Under Housing Goal 2, a strategy says new residential development should be connected to existing or planned neighborhood area that incorporates traditional neighborhood design, and neighborhoods should include housing for all ages and family types. And then finally, under housing action items, it says update zoning and subdivision ordinances to remove barriers to affordable housing, including allowing dwelling accessory structures and small lot housing and increasing allowed maximum lot coverages, and update land development ordinances to require allow components of traditional neighborhood design and consideration of existing neighborhood context. Design features require or allow to include the compact mixed-use components, small lots, narrow front setbacks, deeper garage setbacks, walkable street patterns, narrow streets, and pedestrian amenities. And then finally, under our future land use or land use section of the comprehensive plan, this is a low-density residential area, LDR. It states suitable zoning districts in a low-density residential are R1 single-family residential, R2 single-family transitional, and R3 two-family residential. And states though low-density housing is the predominant use in most neighborhoods, healthy, balanced neighborhoods may also include other uses to support the needs of residents, including small pockets of higher-density residential. Also mentions community centers, places of worship, park and recreation, and states infill development will protect the character of the existing residential neighborhoods. So there is some information in our comprehensive plan as well relating to this. So that's kind of a summary of the request and what's included in the PUD. And for the zoning, I know they're tied together at the Planning Commission. They did I think send forward the zoning based on the thought that the preliminary plat would also be a consideration, and that would come forward at the following reading if this were approved, but that did not have a positive recommendation. So if you have any questions on any of that or what occurred at the Planning Commission, I can try and clarify a little further as well.
Eric, just for options for what the council can
Yeah.
do as they take into account what's happened so far and as they listen to what will be said yet tonight. When the Planning Commission hasn't or didn't approve the preliminary plat, the council will have that as brought forward to them. The council can still, if they choose to move forward with this, approve this ordinance that they have before them through the 3 readings and still approve that preliminary plat and move forward if they so desire, given all the information that they have.
Yeah.
If the council feels like based off of what's said during the discussion tonight or any other meeting, or if they feel like the fact that the planning commission didn't approve that preliminary plat, they could choose to, if they feel they want to go along with that decision from the planning commission, it would be a recommendation to go ahead and vote down this ordinance tonight. Would that be accurate?
Not necessarily. I'd probably bring it to the third reading and have because the.
So that it's
part of-
there at the same
yeah,
time?
Because they're not considering the preliminary plat at this time, and part of the language of the PUD ordinance states the preliminary plat has to be approved for this to take effect. And so that they're seeing the full component of the development would be my recommendation.
If they were gonna base it off of that, they should
Yeah.
wait until the third
Yeah,
reading.
yeah.
Plus, we get the advantage of having that housing study report too.
Yeah, and with the PUD, I did have some options listed, and Jim mentioned, you can approve the PUD as presented. You could suggest changes that the developer could take back and see if there's options for. If you do not approve it, it would remain R1, which it is now, and the developer would, if this weren't approved, would have the option of bringing forward a different proposal as well, but would suggest if there's any input on that, if you're not looking to approve this and he's wanting to maybe continue to look at it, what are some suggestions?
What if
As
we would
well.
opt to vote no tonight?
You could choose to do that, and really, as you listen to folks speak and you have the rest of this as context, you may have that be your ultimate decision. That's certainly,
That's an option.
that's an option.
Yeah, okay.
We would not bring forward the preliminary plat then, because that's based on the zoning,
Right.
so it,
But, okay, can, answer a question for me, from your viewpoint, moving forward on that lot size, taking away the developer, do you think we have a better chance of developing that property, leaving it as R1, or are we going to have to change it anyways, regardless? That's,
just from a development standpoint, what I've seen, the history on it, it's tough to say, but it has sat there for 40 years as R1 and no one's brought forward. And it's a quality, great neighborhood that I would expect would develop if it was feasible to develop. So that leads to me to believe, not being here the last 40 years, that there's some difficulties in developing it. And this is one of the first viable options that were brought forward. But I can't say that it wouldn't develop as R1. It just hasn't for 40 years, and that's an issue with 3 dead-end
A
roadways.
lot,
that
a
I
lot
see.
of reason why you see communities have transitions occur between zoning districts is because it is hard to get R1 or single-family housing to develop directly adjacent to commercial property. And that means that piece of property is, I mean, it's not that it can't develop as R1, it's just tends to be more difficult, and it's not something that's Burlington, just Burlington, that's anywhere.
And as
But
you-
that's not the only decision that you have to
No.
make. That's just something that you can have as context.
As you look at our zoning code in the area on the map here, existing is R1. The proposal is R2, single-family transitional, and then you have C1, limited commercial. That's typical zoning would be R1, R2, C1 in some capacity, or R1, R3, C1. That's the typical zoning, not that this is a typical situation.
Go right into commercial.
There are some barriers or perceived barriers being adjacent to a commercial lot that maybe, whether it's townhouses or apartments or duplexes, that's typically, you see that buffer between commercial and single family.
Okay,
What are the chances of getting something else besides housing there? Like park or something else that you were
That,
talking of?
it's privately owned,
Yeah.
someone would have to purchase it. You still have 3 dead-end roadways that I know a lot of departments within the city would like to see connected in some manner so that you don't have, and these are 3 roads that we wouldn't allow under our current code. They'd have to have cul-de-sacs or be connected, and for whatever reason, they were developed this way because there was a thought that there would be a Terrace Avenue connecting all 3 at some point, but that just hasn't occurred. And with Lawrence Avenue, it won't occur now, so the option is either connecting them through a residential development or someone just coming forward to develop or connect it, so.
okay. Well, let's go to the audience. I'm sure there's somebody here that has some questions regarding the PUD. So is there anybody from the audience that has a question regarding second reading of this rezoning? Now, this is just the rezoning. This isn't, we haven't moved on to the
No,
resolution.
this is also approving the PUD.
Oh, yeah. But it's only the second reading though, too, so let me stress that.
My name is John Kinney. I live at 2913 Dill Street. Now, it was mentioned that if the property stayed as R1, the setbacks would be on the side of the property, and that they would actually be less than the rear setback of the duplexes. A side yard is much different than a rear or a backyard. The houses in the neighborhood are close for side setbacks as individual homes. I don't think anybody would object to that kind of setback, but now you're turning the house and that setback is now a rear setback or a backyard rather than a side yard. The other comments I want to make, the request before you is to allow 30 family units or 15 duplexes to be constructed on approximately 4.2 acres at the west end of Garden, Lawn, and Dill. With the removal of approximately 1.16 acres for the street right-of-way, you're left with just 3.06 acres in which to build 15 duplexes, or approximately 4.9 duplexes per acre. A previous city ordinance, number 3117, which rezoned the parcels along Lawrence Drive to commercial, and this parcel at the end of Dill, Lawn, and Garden to medium-density residential, gave a maximum of duplex multiple family homes and a maximum of 3 duplexes per acre as a requirement. And I quote from the ordinance, "consistent and comparable with single-family resident character of the neighborhood," unquote. So I therefore ask the city council to follow their own plan for this property and deny the request for the higher density use of this property. Nearly 5 duplexes per acre versus what was a plan of 3 duplexes per acre. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, could you address that?
I didn't catch what ordinance that was or what
3317?
3117.
what was that rezoning?
3117?
3117.
3117.
I don't know what ordinance that was, what that approved or what that was from.
Do you have a
offhand.
copy of that information?
Give them a little time to, give them a little time to process it, and then we can come back.
Was there anybody else while he's going over that? Is there anybody else from the audience that did have a comment regarding this PUD?
Coulter Levinson, I live at 2916 Garden. Just to touch on what John was saying with 30 townhouses, with Willow Street, with the school traffic, if everybody in that condo or a townhouse has 2 cars, you're looking at 60 cars added to that neighborhood at 7:30 and 3:30 to leave or to get home from work. You're lucky to get in there, 10th in line to get off of Garden just onto Willow. So I gotta leave 20, 30 minutes just to get out of there. I've only been in the neighborhood for a year, so a lot of my neighbors would probably have more comments than me. Like, is it Eric said that it's been vacant since I believe the 70s is what the work session. People love it, dead ends. That's why I moved my family to the dead end. I lived on Madison, no place for my kids to play. The houses that are for sale in that neighborhood go quick. So maybe that's why people, he said it was a great neighborhood, everybody liked it. Maybe it is because it's a dead end. I don't think anybody here is against the development, but earlier, Eric said that, if Garden and Lawndale as of streets and would not fit a street and just a few homes, if that can't fit, I don't think 30 townhouses can fit. If you just do the math. The side yards, I'll agree with John. I'm not on the corner lot, but I would not want to listen to the family get-togethers or whatever. That would potentially be a side yard in their backyard. That would, 15 feet, they'd be right out my window. Might as well invite them over. I could go on forever. I mean, like I said, on a more personal level, I mean, I don't know the variances or anything, but that's why I moved my kids there. It's quiet. There's hundreds of kids. I mean, it seems like hundreds of kids, but in that neighborhood, and just by in the morning or in the summer, you gotta know where they're at just for that traffic. We gotta loan 60 more cars. Think of that. I mean, everybody loves that neighborhood the way it is. Don't go overpopulating or changing it dramatically, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cliff.
Sir, did you have a comment?
I'm Dennis Grizzle, 2924 Dill Street. During the first reading at the last council meeting, the major concerns that people brought up were stormwater drainage. Probably still a concern, but there's been some work done since between then and now that maybe, I guess even an engineering study that might address some of that. But we also talked about the density of the structures, including these setbacks, narrow streets, and a narrow right-of-way. And then the additional traffic on the 3 access streets of Garden, Lawn, and Dill. To me, if you look at the Iowa law for zoning variances, it talks about requiring to establish unnecessary hardship. And that means any permitted use deprives the landowner of all beneficial use of the land. It's not sufficient just to show that a more profitable use is available with the variance. The plight of the owner, the second thing that has to be shown is the plight of the owner is not due to the general conditions of the neighborhood. There's some unique condition that requires the variance. And the third one is use of the authorized use by the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And the burden is on the applicant to show all 3 elements exist in order to get approval of the variance. In my mind, the PUD, if it's used improperly, can violate the intent of that variance law. Because I think that intent is to protect neighboring landowners from development that detracts from their value and use of their property. And I think approval of this zoning change with the associated relaxing of the codes, I think conflicts with the intent of the variance laws. We talk about relaxing of the setbacks to accommodate the density of the structures. If I understand correctly, the 15-foot setback requirement in the backyard would not include a patio. That could extend into that space. So if you put in a patio that's 10 or 15 feet deep, you're on top of the side yards, basically, of the neighbors' houses that are at the end of the street. That can include places where they're going to store garbage cans, outdoor cooking grills, lawnmowers, whatever, because there's not going to be a lot of other storage available for these things. We talk about the fact that Terrace was originally planned to go and connect Lawn, Garden, and Dill, and I think that's been protected for all these years, even after we knew Terrace would not extend to West Avenue. So these neighbors that have bought those properties have basically relied upon the fact that they would have a street that would buffer them from whatever was built farther to the west. In this case, under this plat, that wouldn't happen. We'd move the street farther west and then have 2 rows of duplexes. We had concerns about, of course, the excessive traffic. If you think about 2 vehicles per family unit, that's an additional 60 vehicles traveling in and out each day. People have already talked about what happens during the school arrival and dismissal times. And the existing streets are really too narrow to have parking on both sides plus 2-way traffic. There's not room for that. The Planning Commission did recommend denying the approval of the plat. Their concerns were the density of the structures and the corresponding relaxing of setbacks, and that they're concerned about safety with respect to streets being relatively narrow. The Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the zoning change was conditional on the approval of a plat. So, in my opinion, it's not desirable to relax zoning regulations for a future undefined development. And since the Planning Commission voted not to recommend plat approval, then I believe there's no recommendation from them to approve the rezoning any longer. I am not against development of that area. I mean, people need to be able to use their property, but I think the density of this plan that's being proposed exceeds and would change the characterization of the neighborhood. And for that reason, I request that the council deny rezoning and the PUD at this time.
Thank you, Dennis.
Very satisfied in the audience?
Hi, I'm Judith Akers. We live at 3009 West Avenue, and a lot of our concern is, of course, the drainage, but we're also concerned about the density back there also of the traffic. We even, on West Avenue, we get a lot of the school traffic from there, the people that live back there, also the traffic from the high school, and this is going to add to it. We're getting more traffic with the businesses that are going on Lawrence Avenue that are being built up, which is great for our city, but again, you're adding to the congestion on West Avenue. A lot of my concern is the drainage. I don't know, I know they have said that the surveyors, what they have come up with and putting in a couple drains here and there that they feel will help with the drainage. I have a picture here that if you could put up that, I would like you to see the conditions that we put up with over there when it rains of the water. It's just unbelievable, the amount of water. There was, to what I was explained, at one time there was a natural creek, went down Terrace Avenue. Our water table there is very high. We ran into water, 6 foot down, when we put our geothermal in.
Oh, you're talking, let me take a peek at that real quick.
It, now if you could put that up so you can just get an idea of the way it does not drain. You can see the water in the field behind us by that picture. You can see the water in our neighbor's yard. And that was not a heavy, heavy rain.
You have a lovely lake house.
Yeah, we have a lake in our backyard. You can see behind us, behind the trees, that's where you want to develop back there, is where the water is. You can see the water in our neighbors behind our fence through there in that corner. There is a very slow infiltration there. Our concern is, okay, you're saying you're going to put a couple drains in there. There's drains now back to the south by the high school, which doesn't accommodate that. Yes, we get water from the east of us because we were told by Whitey Clausen that the houses east of us should have never been able to be built at a higher level than ours is. We get some drainage from that, yes. But we also get a lot from the field. We have a shed back in it would be the southeast corner of our lot, and the water just flows in there. It comes down the field there behind the houses and garden and lawn and along there, and just literally, it has no place to go. If there is a problem with infiltration, now you're wanting to add a road back there, you're wanting to add cement back there, you're gonna have very little yards, so you're gonna have very little soil for this water to run into. So to me, there's gonna be, the infiltration's gonna be worse, because you're gonna have no place for it to run. And you're gonna have a lot of water running into these drains that they're talking about. We had more problems when they put the sidewalk down through there by Fairway. There was no kind of a drain or anything put from the field underneath the sidewalk. There's a ditch by Fairway which gets very little water in it. It doesn't drain in there. And I know a lot of these people that live on the end of these streets have a lot of water in their yards too. So it's a big concern for us. Because, you know, if we're being told that they never should have been able to build that high to the east of us, what's gonna happen when they build behind us? And then again, like I said, our concern is the density of it too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you Judith's husband?
Yeah.
God bless you. She's a go-getter. Is that covered? Yes, sir.
Andy Bentley, 2923 Dill Street. I'm the very last house right by the track and football field at the school. I kind of want to piggyback on what she said too, because when they forced the school on us, first of all, they said drainage is not going to be a problem. We're going to take care of this. We've got everything covered. They put 2 drains in, and they are located, one right here where Dill Street ends, and one a little bit farther down here that looks kind of like a retention pool, because it's probably still full of water today. But those 2 drains were put in, and I think they drain out onto Mason Road, because every time we get any kind of substantial amount of rain, I can sit in my family room and watch the roosters go about 6 or 8 feet high off the vehicles. And there's been times I've called the police department and say, hey, you need to close this road because it's impassable. People have stalled out. So if we take away all your ground drainage by putting in so many units here, where's that water gonna go? Is it gonna go out on Lawrence, or is it gonna go back onto Mason Road where there's already a drastic problem? So that's my big thing. I mean, do it, but do it right. Another comment, when my house was built in 1996 on Dill Street, they asked for a variance because it would have been facing a different way or something. But to actually build my house, 2 feet had to be cut off the house because the city council would not allow a variance for that house to be built. And now you want to allow a giant variance, which is going to affect a whole subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Moment. Okay, are you satisfied there?
Yes, sir.
Larry Williams, 1567 Mason Lane. Some of these problems you're talking about we've faced on Mason Lane. Our advantage, although we're not a restricted community, is to 55, we're restricted to older people and no families with children kind of thing. We don't allow any parking in the driveway. You're limited to 2 vehicles. There's no parking allowed on the street because our street's only 20 feet, something like that. It's too small. A 27-foot street is not going to work when they have company. You got all this density, and they're going to have a birthday party. All the aunts and uncles come, 2 or 3 parties on the same day. Where are you going to park them? My comment would be that they're going to build homes for $150,000. The cheapest you can buy right now in Burlington is $190,000. I don't think they're going to build them for $150,000. The other thing is, if it was for a retired community, 55 and older, you'd eliminate a lot of this traffic, congestion, things in the backyard and all that. Because under controlled unit development like we have, you can't set things out in the backyard and so forth. And that cleans everything up. So that's something you might fly back at the developer. You know, if you're gonna put a high density situation and fill it full of a lot of people with children, you are creating a crisis. Retired people, we don't move around at 7 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. It's too crowded. So we wouldn't create any congestion problems there. And there is a need. I've talking to a lot of people coming looking at one unit we have for sale. They don't like it because they don't have a sunroom. And there's probably been 30 people look at that unit and want to buy it if it had a sunroom. So there's a need for elderly housing of that type of situation. There's plenty of need. So it's something to think about, put towards the developer. Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
points, Larry, good points. Okay, are we satisfied in the audience? Anybody but you, anybody, no, I'm just kidding. How you doing?
Steve Hartman with Klingler and Associates, doing some work with the developer toward some of the requirements with plating and the drainage. And could I use that machine again to speak through the drainage briefly?
Yeah.
We've reviewed drainage patterns here on this site and done some preliminary work toward the piping network and the drainage, and there is an existing storm sewer system on the south end of this property. And most of this field now does drain to the south. And I'm going to use highlighter on that. And does drain to 3 different intake sources that go to piping that does go down to Mason Road. So we've got a little bit of stormwater detention. As that water drains to the south, it collects near these existing inlets. What we're looking at with this subdivision and meeting the requirements for stormwater runoff and detention, we're looking at a much larger detention area there in Outlot 1. Just some background information, there's approximately an acre of ground to the east over here on Dill Street that flows back onto this parcel. On the north end, we do recognize that there are some challenges up there. Part of this field does drain to the north currently. Just about where the extension of Garden Street comes through in this area is actually a high point. So we've got over 1.5 acres of ground up in here that flows right now off of the farm field to the north. And it does collect both on this farm field and, as the pictures indicated, there's water that does stand in some of these other areas. What we've incorporated in this stormwater system is 3 sets of storm drains across the street. The street will entirely slope to the south with low points at those drain systems. The developer has understood and agreed that he's going to have some backyard drainage systems. We're looking at those up here at the north end. And we've looked at those at the intermediate lots on the east side of the development. What we're looking at coming off of this site is only about 42 feet of the northern part of this subdivision would run off to the north, and that's why we've contemplated and planned for the backyard drainage system. So I think there's an improved situation. This subdivision will get water away from some of those problem areas, and will create the larger detention scheme here at the south end of the property.
Thank you, Steve.
All right.
The drains that were on the north end, where are they gonna drain into?
We'll drain southward to the detention pond through the system on the site.
And when it's full, where do they drain to?
Wait, we can't.
Yeah, we're going to have to save that till afterwards now
Yeah.
for the Q&A. Let's bring it back up here and let's go ahead and get down to business. Do you guys have any other questions, council?
I don't have any questions, but
There's somebody else who wants to speak.
Hello, I'm Lloyd Fola. My son and I are the developers on this piece. A couple of things. that I've been listening to over the last couple of months. One of them that comes to mind is the R2 zoning is one of the main things for a transition between commercial and R1. I think that was re-innovated tonight. Another one, if I remember it right, or if I understand it right, one of the city's mandates is to develop and build on infill lots. And I think this is probably the largest infill lot left in the city, of the original part of the city. The narrow and long piece of ground requires a PUD to make this thing develop, so we can develop it. Limited, there's gonna be some changes that we ask for, but they're very limited. One of them is for the front yard setback, 20 foot instead of 25. The rear yard, 15 foot instead of 25. On the west side, that's not gonna make any difference at all, because we're butting up to a 50-foot buffer between the commercial and the residential. The only concern that we had from the original planning and zoning meeting was the water issue, surface water. We did hire the engineers. They went out and shot elevations. They came up with a plan. It's been reviewed by the city engineer. It's been reviewed by city staff. It seems to be acceptable. So, it needs to be refined yet, but the overall plan is good. This subdivision has endorsement or recommendations of the city staff, the city engineer, the fire marshal, and the school. And connecting the Garden Street, Lawn Avenue, and Dill Street has a safety recommendation from the fire marshal. And also looping the existing water lines will provide fresher water without having to flush the lines. According to your city code, the PUD is allowed by section 17-2040 of Title 17. We were required to provide almost complete set of drawings. We're 20% away from having a full working plan of drawings for the subdivision. And that was just for the preliminary plan. I don't understand how that happened or why. It might be something you guys need to review in the future, but that was what was requested from us to get to this point. There's been numerous PUDs identical to this or very similar to this that's already been approved, so you already have a precedent set. In a meeting on March 19th, 2012, the same issues came up with another PUD. It was a congested area, too much development, safety of the kids due to more traffic, too much pavement, not enough green space, the water runoff, the rights of property owners, the width of the road, all of that was the same exact problems that we're facing right now. And that was on Florence Avenue, and it was approved with just a general layout. Without even a complete set of plans, the preliminary plat was approved with the same issues. The other thing too, Eric touched on a little bit, if we had just an R2 zoning on this here without a PUD, we could actually build 5 feet off of that property line instead of the 15 that we're proposing to do. Lastly, I talked with the Des Moines County Assessor just to find out what kind of revenues will come off of this particular project. I know that Eric's mentioned a couple times we were looking at 150,000, but in reality it's 170 is what we're looking at. And based on 30 units, comes out to $5,100,000 worth of improvements. According to the assessor, Matthew, he's estimating that the city of Burlington will receive $44,000 yearly. The Burlington school system will receive another $44,000, and the Des Moines County will receive $22,000. That's on an annual basis. And that's after the first 3-year abatement. That's the only thing that we're asking for is that 3-year abatement. So that's what I had to say, and I hope you take that into consideration.
Thank you, Lynn.
You bet.
What was your address?
And he'll be available for questions afterwards. Okay, I'll take one more.
Yeah, I'm John Cochran. I live at 2904 Garden Avenue. I've been there since 1990. And the traffic area,
Can you give me that address again, please?
2904 Garden Avenue. The traffic out there is going to get a lot worse, as people have come up here and said, than it is when they add all these 50, 60 extra cars to the area. Right now, you're dealing with traffic from the high school and Ed Stone at the same time, right out there on West Avenue, which is a 2-lane road. You don't have a right turn lane on Willow Avenue to get out of there. Buses can't get in and out of there right now. If you add more traffic, and drainage has always been a problem. I looked at their drainage retention thing they put on Mason Road. Numerous times that road is flooded. I have friends that maybe they should have been watching a little better. I had a coworker go on to work early one morning, run her car off in there and ruin their car. And I don't think these retention ponds are gonna work out there. So I would just hope that you guys would consider what the Planning Commission has more or less said already. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Council, I just want to get this, out. Here's my question, or here's my concern. And I understand that, things got approved or whatever, but somebody brought this up, and this is a concern for me. Somebody brought this up tonight, that they said, well, what about Mason Road? It floods all the time, and that is my concern. It does flood a lot at Mason Road. That's not my hugest concern. My biggest concern is I thought it was too many units. I did. I thought, how are you gonna squeeze that many units without it really affecting that area with traffic, with all of that stuff? The water thing, I thought, well, maybe that'll actually help because they're going to take the water in a different direction, but I'm really not even convinced on that. I just don't know, I'm not convinced. And again, Mason Road was done out. It was supposed to have been gone through, and everything was supposed to be good with Mason Road, and it's not. And I don't know, I'm saying a lot, but I'm just saying, there's so many variables in this. Mason Road was supposed to open up the door so that West Avenue wasn't so congested. Well, that's not the case. You know, it didn't happen, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I really want to see you do some development, and that area is going to have to get developed. I do want to also say that, you know, for those that moved into the area for the dead end, I'm sorry, but we have to develop. I mean, we have to allow people to develop, but not at any cost, and I just think everything needs to be looked at. I don't know. I'm just not convinced on it, council.
Yeah, my biggest concern is the traffic. I mean, if they have a big issue now with pickup during the school hours, if they're saying they can't get out, I mean, that, to me, that means that emergency vehicles can't get in. I think there's a problem currently that needs to be solved with traffic
There is.
before adding any more vehicles.
Councilman?
The proposal for that to be R2 is in keeping with our comprehensive plan and in keeping with our ordinances. And I think that's the right zoning for that property. There absolutely is an issue with water. There is an issue with traffic. That's very concerning to me. And I met with the developer and I told him I had a real issue with changing the setbacks, and that I thought it was overdeveloping in short, the density was too great. and I think we should have sent that message, that message should have gotten there before it even came to council, or before it even went to the planning commission. But at the very least, the planning commission should have gotten on that, at first, so the developer wouldn't have had so much money in it, and so that so many people in the neighborhoods, wouldn't, have had to gotten so upset about this development. I think it was done right, but I want to mention that Mason Meadows was approved during a time that I was on council, and it was wrong. It should have never been approved. A 20-foot wide street and 10-foot setbacks. It's cramped that neighborhood, but it is a private development, and the city does not maintain the streets or any of the other infrastructure out there. That's up to the neighborhood association. An issue came up, and I met with those neighbors out there, and they have a condo association, and they pay for the snow removal and all and the like. And the values of those properties are no different than on a street that's got a full street and is built properly. And I thought, how could this be? And how could we do this to this particular neighborhood? And then Sunrise West was approved, and it was approved as a private development, and it was done wrong too. The short setbacks without sidewalks and with as flat as the surface was out there, and the lack of grading. They did do one thing right. They put in a lot of storm sewers. They put in some retention ponds. That was before the city got involved. Well, after they come back to the city and said, "City, would you take over this development? It's turning out to be too much for us." So then we required sidewalks and the like, and we even waived some of those. But it was a development that was done wrong. And I promised myself at that time, I'm not going to allow, for me, another development to be done wrong. I want to encourage the developer. I want him to work with staff and come up with a workable development for that property up there, where he can still make money, but it satisfies our ordinances as they're written. And I know I'm talking out both sides of my mouth, because I approved a very similar development in Westbrook Meadows. But it's totally different. It's virgin property that is surrounded by nothing more than the development that's been created by the developer that's doing that one, and not interfering with any existing development that's been there for 30 or 40 years. I feel sorry for the people in the neighborhood that the land is where it's at. But the land is developable. It does fall within in the comprehensive plan. It's ripe for development. It just needs to be done the right way. And we need to work as a council to ensure that we get some of these roads built out before development occurs, if necessary, to reduce some of that traffic congestion that we have, or create some kind of traffic controls so that isn't as big an issue for the neighborhoods as it is right now. And not to mention the added when and if this development occurs.
Well, I just wish I do want to make sure that we do get addressed the money that he spent. I just want to know if that's standard operating procedure or what the deal is, because I just feel like we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem, do you guys have any other comments before?
I would just make my comment simply. Number one, I'm all for development. I'm familiar with that area. I've looked at it about 6 times. I'm concerned about the density. I'm no expert on planning and all, but if I were living there, I'd be out there raising holy cane, I'll tell you. So anyway, I'm gonna vote no regardless, I can tell you right now. I'm a no voter.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
I'm with Councilman Scott. I have conflicting things here, but I don't think you can expect that you're going to have dead-end streets from now on. I just don't think you can expect that. I don't think that's reasonable for the city as a whole. And I know that's part of your argument. That's why you bought the house. Some of you. The gentleman stood right there and said so. So.
But he did say that he was not against development.
Yeah. So just let me talk, okay? Please? I've listened. So I'm in favor of that, of developing that acreage. I think that's one of our objectives here is to do these infills, and I think that's important. And I do think you're better off with the PUD than if you just go to straight R2, because your setbacks are gonna be greater with the PUD than what you get with an R2, but it does need to be an R2 zone, because there's, you know, you folks, you wouldn't build an R1, a nice home in that zone backed up to a commercial zone. I mean, no one's gonna do that, so it needs to be an R2. And I'm looking forward to that housing needs assessment, and I'm sure that housing needs assessment is gonna come through and says we need more housing of this nature and the infills. Having said all that, I know that the Planning Commission voted against the plat, and I've said here before, that I find it really hard to go against what the Planning Commission says. Otherwise, why do we have a Planning Commission? Why do we have commissions that give us recommendations if we don't listen to them? So if that issue comes up, then I'm going to agree with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did say, go ahead with this rezone. But when the next plan comes through and wants to be rezoned R2, then I will support it.
Okay.
I got one other thing I want to say. I just want to say that I know this developer. The guy is a genuine, has a heart of gold.
Yeah, he does.
He's a businessman. He has done a lot of building in the community. He's taken on a lot of old houses. He's taken a lot of projects that nobody else would take on. And I'm glad he's here. I hope we can work with him to make the right kind of development back there that's gonna work for your neighborhood and for the community, and that he doesn't give up. But Lloyd Tola and his son Levi are two really super individuals, and I'm proud to say that I know them, and that they had that they called me out and asked me to meet with them out at the development, and we talked honestly with each other. And I met with the neighbors too out there too, and we had a frank discussion. So let's not be mad at each other. Let's try to do what's best for the community.
Well said. Thanks for bringing that up, because he is a fantastic developer, and we do appreciate you. I hope you know that. Let's get down to business. Let's see where we're at so we can move forward now. Kathleen?
McCampbell,
No.
Scott,
No.
Wilson,
No.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
No.
Okay, we'll be moving forward in that direction. We thank everybody for coming down tonight, and actually, you know, if any of you want to leave real quick, well, I'll let you get on out of here so that you can get on out of here. So.
Do you want to tell them exactly what happened?
Yeah, sorry, for those of you, if you didn't understand what just happened, we voted that down. So, again, thank you all for coming down, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reach out to Lloyd. I just want to encourage him, you know, because he's just really trying to do fantastic stuff.
I don't
Be
have
another
those.
reading on the 18th that we have to come to?
No, it's done. We're done. It's done.
Thank you for coming down.
We appreciate.
Thank you.
He may,
Yeah.
there may be more coming, but nothing on the,
Oh, yeah.
God bless you. God bless you.
We would love to have it.
see you, Bubba.
Okay. Yeah, we may have to shut that door for a minute too after we get them out so we can move forward, but wouldn't want to leave them in here. Can we get, are we ready to read the next resolution?
those. She's got.
All right, fantastic.
All right, Your Honor, I move we approve the preliminary plat for the replat of Outlot A in Westbrook Meadow subdivision, Phase 2.
Second.
Moved in second. Mr. Tisland?
This is tied, excuse me, plating, tied to the rezoning of Westbrook Meadows, the Outlot A. So this is the plat corresponding to that. This did go to the Planning Commission, and they did recommend 6-0 to recommend approval of the preliminary plat to the City Council. This will follow all the provisions of the PUD as just approved previously in this meeting with zero lot line development, condos over 2 lots with each separate unit on each individual lot with the 20-foot setback on the front and generally the 25 in the back with the exception of 2 lots, platting a street and then some outlots for stormwater detention. So very similar to the previous development to the south.
Is that anything?
That's it, yep.
Okay. Anybody from the audience? Okay. Okay.
Mike Pearson, 912 Monticello. As you guys said, it's consistent with Phase 1. I just want to make sure I offer to answer any questions that you guys might have. Appreciate your approval, if there aren't any questions. Very
We
good.
do appreciate developers down here.
You've done awesome on the first one, we just want to see you keep going. Thanks.
Anything else? All right. Kathleen?
Campbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Your Honor, I move the approval of a preliminary plat of the Burlington Crossing subdivision.
Second.
Moved in second, twice.
Pardon me.
Mr. Tisland?
Double second.
Double second.
And I gladly do this. This is exciting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Get her done.
This is the preliminary plat, Burlington Crossing area, found by Agency Roosevelt Market in Columbus. They're initially platting out 7 lots, could be further developed based on sale or development of lots down the road as well. But this initial plat would plat 4 lots on Roosevelt Avenue, 2 on Agency, and then a large lot to the back of both of those lots. So this is, again, just preliminary plat. This was approved by the Planning Commission 6-0. Allows them to move quickly into final platting once they're ready for that stage and we get everything worked out for ownership and purchase by the developer and allows them to move quickly into the final plat at that point, so.
Any questions from the audience?
Could I ask you where we stand on that, by the way?
Jim might have a few more details
No,
than
you
I.
may not.
You can say no if you don't want to.
I don't even know how to answer that question. The property, we've processed as much of that as what we can. We've been given essentially kind of a quit claim deed, but there is an encumbrance, a loan against a larger piece of property that still is in the process of getting them to agree to have that cleared up. Our attorney is working on that. Also looking at what are some possible different options if we run into any complications as we move forward over the next couple of weeks. So we may still be looking at other finagling to try to make this all happen, but in regards to that encumbrance that's against it. It's caused no end of consternation to me and several others, and I feel for the developer who's got a financial risk, but we as a city have a risk here too as we move forward and try and just making sure this all works smoothly. And it isn't. But again, in the end, the attorney feels that we have the ability to make this happen. It's just a matter of what hoops do we have to hop through in order to make it occur.
Why would they want to write in, write out on, 2 write-in, write-outs on that property?
What do you mean?
Well, that's the only solution I could see is if we move the entrance to that development in a little ways and make both those entrances to Walgreen right in, right out only.
Oh, Walgreens isn't the one holding us up.
Oh,
They've agreed, well, the landowner has, it's not Walgreens that owns it.
landowner, yeah.
The landowner has agreed to the sale. There's a loan against it, and getting that encumbrance to release off of this portion of the property is what's the issue.
I'll try to pay attention next time.
So, and the whole process has been complicated, and I don't want to get into what has led to that, because it's just been frustrating to deal with. But again, our attorney feels that we have the ability, one way or another, to make it happen. It's just a matter of what hoops we have to hop through to get it done.
Tell me not to ask that question.
Don't ask that question again. Gavel him out of it. Couldn't reach it.
Anybody else? You guys good?
Yes.
Oh, come
This
on,
could be a
let's
great development.
let's
Yes,
do
it
it.
is
Let's-
about time. Kathleen?
McCampbell,
Yes.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Good deal.
Your Honor, I move we ratify the tentative agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Local 7176 Communication Workers of America, AFL-CIO.
Second.
Moved in second. City manager?
This is very similar to the contract that we had with the firefighters union. What's the name of your union? IAFF. I apologize, I'm just not doing well with initials. 2.25% increase per year, 2.25% wage increase per year on a 5-year contract. The contributions towards health insurance gradually occurring over the course of 5 years. There's some maximums that are built in there for percentages, gradually stair-stepping up towards 10%, but with caps on the single and family, graduating from the 20 single, 40 family in the first year to, because I'm not finding it in here, but trying to go through it and talk at the same time. And the last year is 75 and 110 for family.
It's on page 41.
Thank you. But those are the same percentages, the contribution 3, 4, 6, 8, 10%, and then the caps that are in there for single family for each of the 5 years. It's the same as what's in the IAFF. And what you'll find at the back has the continuing to maintain 5% plan contribution, or 5% increase in overall premiums annually. Similar to our current language, our current contract language says anytime that the percentage increase on those caps goes up more than 5% annually, goes over the graduated 5% increases, we have to work with the employees to either have employee contributions or make plan design changes. We still have those two pieces incorporated in here, along with their already designated contributions, graduated, stair-stepping up over the 5 years. There's also in here some language for there could potentially be additional employee contributions if the overall premiums are increasing more than 5% on an annualized basis. They have limited what they would take for employee contributions in here, additional beyond that step increase. $10 is a maximum in any given year that they would take in additional increases, or $20 total over the life of the 5-year contract. Really what that means is then if the overall premium increases more than 5%, where those caps go up 5% each year, it has to be done essentially through plan design changes. There's limited the flexibility for how we accomplish that.
Right.
So we've got a little bit of the strong things that we had for controlling healthcare costs in our existing contract while also getting at least at one of the identified goals that the council has expressed in trying to see employee contributions towards health insurance. And it's a good combination as we've gone through negotiations in having, how do you measure making sure that we are able to control costs, and employees, or I think also have expressed a desire to, how do we make sure that we are still part of the process in determining what the plan looks like. And that's been the crux, I think, of where the first two contracts that we've had settled, some of the key issues that have driven the negotiations.
Good.
But again, this matches what you've already approved as a tentative agreement with the fire union. And it's set up here if you feel like comfortable with it to be able to move forward. The police union has, CWA has, they approved this last week, the tentative agreement. So this would put us instead to be able to finalize documents as we move forward.
Good. Well, I just want to throw in there for those that I'll probably run into later on this week, that wanted, that spoke to me about being more aggressive on this. I want to put it in words of, same way somebody just told me tonight. You have to crawl before you walk, and I definitely think that this is crawling in the right direction, and at the same time being fair to, when you're on the outside looking at it, it's real easy to say, well, you know, they've got to pay like everybody else, move it from zero to, $500, a month or whatever. And the thing is that these aren't employees, these are people, and you still have to treat people like people. So it's finding that happy medium, and I don't know if it's the happy medium, but I'm gonna go with people that are smarter than me, and I'm satisfied that we're moving in the right direction, so. Anything else?
Amen.
Amen. Nothing else?
You being a preacher, I thought that would be appropriate.
Thank you, sir. May I have another after the meeting? Kathleen?
Campbell.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Okay.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir, sorry about
A
that.
resolution awarding contract for the 2016 HMA resurfacing project.
Second.
Second.
Sorry.
I never know what somebody's gonna say.
I'm just trying to rethink all.
Mayor,
Ryan?
council, apparently nothing's easy tonight. Okay, so this is awarding the contract for our annual overlay program. This year it's milling off asphalt, as we do every year, resurfacing the roadway. We're putting a new asphalt overlay on Haskell and doing some additional patching on concrete streets that weren't quite bad enough to consider for an overlay. Originally, the cost estimate was $539,426.42 for construction. This is based on the fact that, of best guess. Shipley Contracting, who normally gets our HMA projects dissolved. So theoretically, fewer competitors for the bid. Concrete price has also gone up due to Shipley dissolving the ready mix. Ideal bought them out. So now there's only one concrete producer in the area. I was hoping that my estimate was high. It was slightly. The low bid was Meller Excavating and Asphalt out of Fort Madison at $530,288.52. The construction budget for the project is $472,983. And talking with Stephanie and in her conversations with Jim, we can finance this, or not finance, but fund this additional approximately $60,000 through either residential street improvements, also known as miscellaneous street improvements, or through additional road use tax.
And I think it probably will make sense that we'll do it out of just road use tax as opposed to the other, but.
So the funding is there to do the additional streets. During the public hearing, we had discussed the fact that we bid the project and then cut it down to budget. Looking at that, there's potential legal ramifications with that to where we need to rebid due to change of scope. If you go more than 20% change in project quantities within a change order, the contractor is given the opportunity to, for a price adjustment. When you start talking price adjustments, that means everyone's bid on the project theoretically should have the same opportunity to adjust prices. At the work session, Councilman Davidson asked if we did rebid, are we likely to get better unit prices? And I feel it's safe to say no. Past history, back in, I think it was 2009, Seal Coat project was the only project I think that's been rebid since I've been here for 8 years, and prices came back higher. Unit prices did anyway. The project was still reduced to within budget. I do know that contractor likely underbid some of the patching based on the other two bidders. So that price is definitely gonna go up, but the other prices, it's kind of unknown. When you reduce quantities, theoretically, the unit price goes up because the contractor still needs to make a certain amount of money. One consideration as far as cost estimates go, the engineer's estimate, the price of oil being down for its effect on asphalt is apparently non-existent, as the price of asphalt went up roughly 15%, and the price of oil is about half what it was last year. So
I'm sure you got
lesson
the
learned.
email on that, on why the,
So it is the recommendation that we award the contract to Meller Excavating and Asphalt of Fort Madison, Iowa, in the amount of $530,288.52.
okay.
Thank you, Ron. Keep up the good work.
Anybody in the audience have any questions or concerns? Okay. Council,
Nope, I'm ready to go.
Kathleen, let's take it.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Okay, we'll be moving forward on.
Honor, I have a resolution approving the removal of debris and dredging to remove silt from city's riverfront boat dock and ramp area.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What do you think of that?
Stephanie.
I'm sorry.
Did you preempt?
That's great.
I put a piece of tape.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just to briefly recap, this is a resolution for a project back from flooding from 2013, and we haven't been able to do the project over the years for various reasons listed in the resolution. So we were able to get the project going this March 2016. So basically, this resolution's just approving. Right now, we have some estimates of what we need to pay Matson, Phi, and then the landfill. We haven't completely, the project isn't completely done. We still have some silt sitting on site that needs to be trucked to the landfill or to our dump site. So that's gonna happen within the next month or two, but we do need to get some of these vendors paid, so that's what this resolution is doing. We consider this emergency work, even though it's a couple years behind the approval of the project from FEMA, but until it actually happened, we had really nothing to approve, so. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thank you. Good deal.
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience? All right, lovely crowd tonight. Kathleen?
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Honor, I have a resolution awarding the bid for complete production and delivery of a Type 1 ambulance for the Burlington Fire Department.
Second.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for saving the best for last.
You know it.
Bruce Workman, Battalion Chief at the Fire Department in town here.
For safety.
You have the resolution in front of you for the, awarding the bid for the production of a new ambulance. Back in December, a committee was formed, made up of officers, paramedics, firefighters, people that actually be using the rig. And we sent out bid packets to 4 companies, 2 came back. And the recommendation from the fire chief and the committee is the Lifeline ambulance, which is congruent to our most recent ambulance. It's a 4-wheel drive version. It's on a heavy-duty van-type chassis as opposed to traditional medium truck body chassis, and it's It's a big improvement in reliability, serviceability locally, and in patient comfort, and it seems to be very durable too. Anything else I can offer to you, or any questions?
I'm glad you got four-wheel drive.
That was the best class, yeah.
Hope I never have to take a ride.
Anything from the audience?
Definitely.
Anybody mad that we got four-wheel drive instead of two? I'll say you won't be if you need them.
Yeah, you won't be if you need it.
That's right, that's right.
How is this paid for?
A portion of this is out of an ambulance fund that's been built up gradually over the years from the CTAA, the townships, the funds that they pay towards ambulance purchase. The remainder is part of our annual bond that we'll be doing here over the course of the next couple of months. That's how you had it budgeted. There's $145,000 that we were budgeting to do, but we're right on track for, it's whatever the amount was. We had budgeted the overall project at the $190,000. We're a couple of thousand under. And I just can't remember what the balance is in the CTAA and what we set aside in here. I think it's about $145,000 that we were looking to borrow.
When do we get delivery?
End of summer.
End of summer. So you won't need the four-wheel drive right away.
No, we won't. No, we won't.
Come winter of 2016, 17, all right. we'll be in good shape.
go off-road somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you won't have to use it too much, but that's what business you guys are in.
Thanks, Jim.
Any questions from the audience? All right. Kathleen, let's go ahead and see if we can vote him a new truck.
McCampbell,
Yes.
Scott,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
All right. Okay, that brings us to comments from the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to have comments? Anybody except for Larry Williams? Is there? Anyone?
Larry Williams, 1567 Mason Lane. My comment tonight is on Lawrence Drive. I went to the store during the week at noontime, and there was a parked, a flatbed semi, parked the wrong way, wrong side street, going the wrong way there, and it says no trucks over 5 ton. The trailer loan's over 5 ton. There was also a double hopper.
Was it on a
like flower
weekend, Larry?
Huh?
Was it on a weekend or a weekday?
Weekday. And it's at noon, and that's the problem. They want to come there to the restaurants. There's parking on both sides of Roosevelt for them to park a semi and go to those restaurants. It's not a problem. But they want to drive down closer. And we had a double hopper sitting in front of the Fairway store, and then he was honking at everybody trying to get out of there after he got it parked, jammed in the traffic there. And he had no reason to be there. That's like you take bulk flour in or something. I don't think Farley's buying that. We had another guy pull in with a large pickup and a long trailer, and he had a combine head on it. And he parked to the south side, that's fine. Then when he left, he had to drive through all the traffic of the store right up by the front door of the store. There are signs on both ends of the street limiting tonnage to 5 ton. So people can't read, I guess. That's a problem. But I would suggest that maybe we put no parking signs up and down the streets, and we'd have to talk to maybe some of the business people out there. And, what are we looking at, $1,000 for signs, Steve? Well, depends on how many we put up there. But anyway, it is an issue, and if they park a little ways from the curb, the traffic, and you have to sit there and play suicide with, is the other guy gonna wait till I pass or what, you know? It's not a good situation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Larry.
you.
Anybody else from the audience? Okay. Man, I really want to, Larry, do not let any of us forget about that. You know, that's something that's always a weekend hustle. I knew you were gonna say the weekend. You know, they don't, is it during the week? Seems like everybody gets gutsy on the weekends. I'm surprised. All right. Okay, Mr. Teslin, do you have any closing remarks? Mrs. Salisbury, do you have anything? Okay, Councilwoman.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay, Councilman?
I reserve the right to remain silent.
Okay.
Stealing my line.
Hey, I want to thank Pilgrim Chapel Youth Group for having me come. I want to thank Black Hawk School for having me come and read. I want to give a shout out to Mrs., who's that who got me?
Brissy?
Mrs. Brissy. I want to say thank you for punking me, and thank you to Mrs. Davis and the little kid in Mrs. Davis's class. I was getting ready to, I just got done reading, or so, I can't remember what I did, but anyways, I was heading to another class, and the kid walks up to me and goes, "You have a big nose." No, that was Mrs. Brissy's. And she goes, "Yeah, I know, I gotta tell the story." So Mrs. Brissy goes, well, I can't remember the little kid's name, or I'd bust him out. Anyway, no, I wouldn't. But Mrs. Brissy goes, "Now, I told you, it's okay to tell the truth. No, that we should always tell the truth, but not to be rude." And I said, no, that's okay. He wasn't rude, and he told the truth. I said, "Watch this." I said, "When I get closer to you, and I just start going back and forth," I said, "it gets bigger." And man, his eyes was like, he didn't know what to do. But anyways, I just want to thank that kid for making my self-esteem, plummet even lower than it has. But just want to give those shout-outs. And also, just want to, again, extend my condolences to the Billups family who had to say goodbye to Christine. I graduated with her. Just a sweet, sweet girl. I think everybody's a better person for knowing her. So I just want to throw that out. And also, I will be traveling on Wednesday to the Capitol again to do the prayer and to remind them that Burlington is in the state of Iowa. So just want to throw that out there. And before I do pass it off, so I don't forget this, I'm going to pass it off to you. But Chief, can I have you come just for a second and just give us a little heads up on what happened this weekend on Saturday? I think.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, but we had our Job Fair Expo up on Maple Street on Saturday, and we had a really great turnout. I think I shared with the mayor with some of the networking that happened up there was just amazing. You know, workforce development brought out 8 or 10 people, and the college brought out 8 or 10, and the fire department probably had 10 people, and we had probably 10 plus, and it was just a really neat atmosphere. We did that for a couple hours up there, and we actually had some people come in and get some intent to test forms and filled out some applications. So, I mean, in the future, we would like to see that increase a little bit. But with that said, if you recall, Saturday was 50-mile-an-hour winds, and we really couldn't do anything outside to draw attention, and that was our hope, you know, that the fire department was going to have a little display out there in a fire and kind of get some emergency vehicles in the area to draw some attention. So, I mean, with that said, I just want to thank everybody for their support. It was a really, really good deal, and I think it'll grow in the future. It's something that we need to stay after. It's not a one-time thing that we bring up. But just briefly, Annie's going to be graduating tomorrow night from the Police Citizens Academy. I've got more feedback from this group than any group ever. You know, it's great, and I just want to say thank you for the people that participated in that. It's a big deal for our organization and for the people that go through that. So tomorrow night's her night, along with all the others. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks. Did anybody tase her? I just wanted to know for the record. Anybody
Yeah,
tase her?
I was tased.
Okay, all right.
I can't show you the video.
That was the last thing I just wanted to say, too. Somebody had mentioned something to me about going different places. I just want to give a thank you to the experience on the council. Because we've got so much, because we have competent council and experience on the council, allows me to do a lot more things that I probably wouldn't be able to do because I trust these guys. And I just want to give a shout out to Annie, too. Somebody said, "I'm always seeing pictures of you on Facebook. You're here, there, and everywhere." Well, let me tell you something. Annie's there when I'm at these events, too, because she's the one that takes the pictures. So I just want to say thank you on that as well. But just want to do that. Mayor Pro Tem.
The Bees want me to remind you that Thursday night is opening night. Bob has been nice enough to let me go to Bees board meetings.
He's a sweetheart.
Nice.
So
He
thanks,
gets the
Bob.
check, too. He gets paid. Pardon me, that's chicken lips.
Chicken lips. Anyway, thank you.
Councilman Fleming.
Thursday night.
It's been nice being here. I've really enjoyed this evening. It's nice to be with all of you people, and I want to go home now. So that's adjourned.
Okay, so shut up. Jim Prideaux.
So what you're saying, you don't want me to say anything, do you?
Hurry up.
All right. Housing study, next Tuesday night, April 12, 5:30, up at the Chamber. Commercial space, open house for the downtown buildings. Do we have one that's going to be part of that?
The former youth center.
So the youth center will be one of those facilities. That's April 17, Sunday?
Yep.
1 to 3. You mentioned the Riverfront Planning Commission, not river, the riverfront flood mitigation plan, and some of this, with the steering committee, it has multiple meetings over the next few days. Charlie's also put together some other meetings that go along with that. The planning commission meets on that tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. That's an open meeting for members of the public to be able to be involved with, as the planning commission gets to have a presentation from the engineers and hear what's going on with that project. And then we will have an open house Thursday night for the community to talk about that riverfront plan. That will be here in council chambers at 6:30. The planning commission the planning committee for that gets to meet several times over those days, so all your evenings are committed. You get to celebrate that.
Yep. Yeah, I gotta be reminded, I do.
Hotel motel tax. I just wanted to I don't know if you've followed the chamber has put out their monthly bulletins on updates on what's going on. If you notice the numbers over the last couple of months, January and February, occupancies are down. That's the first time that's happened in years. Year over year, the occupancies are about 6% down overall for the first 2 months. You'll notice the revenue has stayed even with that. So we'll see how that trends as we move forward. But that's really a sign of some of the changes that are going on as the construction winds down south. U.S. Bank building, we will, I don't know who all is going to be involved on the conference call with them this Thursday, but we're just in the process of trying to get steps done for closing to take place and get some timing done for us to take over that facility and start with the process of getting prepared to get the police department moved over there over the next couple of years. Our plans are to get an RFQ out for construction management firms, request for qualifications out for that process. Timing, we still need to speak, that's one of the things we need to talk with the bank about, what they see for when they feel that they're gonna be in a position to start construction and get done with construction so that we can get in. But tentatively, we'd say that we need to start working on design in the July, August timeframe this year. That may change depending on what we get from the bank, but that's kind of the timeframe we're looking at. We need to really have a good idea what we're doing and start moving forward about then. And I think that's it for what I have for tonight. Is that acceptable?
That was very good.
Thank you.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Twice, Kathleen.
Give it to Andy.
McCampbell?
Give it to Andy.
I did. McCampbell?
Aye.
Scott?
Yes.
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
That is-